We decided to stop today at a place we've gone by many times and not stop to really appreciate what it is. This is a main power station or power distribution of mechanical power for these oil pump mechanisms that are all over the hills here at Majestic where we're riding. And this is
We originally had thought these were steam engines, and we were incorrect. They are two-stroke, gasoline-powered oil field engines.
You can see a foundation rim. You have the main engine, the piston itself, flywheels, and actual brakes so you could hold it still. You have a clutch, which some poor guy had to stand here and engage and disengage. Bearing blocks, a giant output pulley for a big wide leather belt, which would go down and communicate to those wheels and continue on to the giant output wheel. So coming over here, the belt would come up to this wheel. It had adjustments to set the tension. The output would then go to another wheel. A little bit of a gear reduction here. Come on around the corner here so you can see this is the old-fashioned method of how they used to key shafts with these big spike-looking things. This is a normal kind of a key for an old 1900s or late 1800s kind of sprocket and shaft connection. That belt then had to turn 90 degrees. And
twist.
That's where the right, a 90-degree twist. That's where all the challenges come in. So you can see this elaborate alignment mechanism here. Lead screws, cranks to set tension. You've got these things to set the camber angle of this so the belt doesn't walk up or down. You see how this tripod here pitches in all different directions? That's kind of neat. And then this somehow or another, well, I do know how it would go. Then it would wrap all around that big wheel and come back and go to there. So this big wheel then had mechanical outputs like you've seen the ride at Disney, the Flying Dumbo or something, where there's a central hub and then output arms. If you look at this wheel on the bottom, put the camera down here, you see the output pieces? Here's one of those supports we were talking about that holds the rod up as they go throughout the woods. Sometimes they had wood tops and it would wear through. Other times it would eventually wear to here. These things are maintenance nightmares. These rods went all throughout the woods. If you see, there's a stanchion there. There's a stanchion behind me, which you can't see out of camera. But from here to here, which it's hard to see in the camera, this is all worn flat because it was in here. You still have the camera? It was in here and it just saws back and forth. And you can see from here to here where it's flat, it's about an 18-inch stroke of the piston of the drive assembly. So it's stroked back and forth that much. This, you see how there's one lower disc and one upper disc and they're not in line with one another? When this large wheel turns, they go in a motion like this. They're not necessarily rotating, they're just doing this. So if you think about it, each one of those outputs going to a rod would push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. These wheels don't go around. They just act in an eccentric like this. So these clevises here, which you can see the rods are cut off, they just pushed and pulled in and out, and they never changed the orientation as to where they went down the hill.
So the shaft this wheel is on,
Is
the
actually
bottom half of the shaft is like a crankshaft in a car.
correct. Staying still, and then the output lobes, you'd have two different output lobes so that these discs would work like two different. Something keeps them from turning. Either the fact that the rods were all there and not letting it turn, or it could have been more complex and there could be some kind of a guiding device in the center that we don't see. But either way, yes, that wheel is prevented from turning, and all those outputs, and there's so many of them, they could run that many pumps from this wheel. If they could guide the rods down the hills, around the trees. Okay, this is a good example of one of these tubes that's a stanchion for the pull rods. And you can see they just improvise with anything they can to make a guide for the rod. And the rod would just saw away, wear this wood out, they would change it and put on another wooden head, and they would just glob grease and stuff and let it rub against it. Sometimes the wood wore away, and it would even hit the metal and start chewing its way through the metal, and we'll show you one of those later.
Right.
Or more.
Very large, or more.
Yeah, and the
Very
belt
big
went
one.
around this, around that, and then 90 degrees to that. Okay, we decided to stop at one of these pumping heads that are typical, that run off of that wheel we showed you last time. And this is a typical installation in the ground where there's some kind of drillings. I don't understand exactly how it all works, but there's some kind of check valves, and the oil is pumped by this rod pulling up and down and traversing the oil out through these pipes. And there's a check valve so it doesn't put it back down. You look at this linkage, if he zooms back, this thing is a mechanical arm. If you look at my arms, it's designed just to pull up and down on the rod and pump the oil. So something's got to make this thing go up and down. And that wheel that we showed you has spokes, if you will, or pull rods coming off of it, which are these guys. A whole bunch of them. And they come to a whole bunch of different machines of these pumping heads on the hills. And you see it's just a connection in one of these 3 holes so that it gets a different stroke. And these rods, if you turn the camera up the hill, these rods go all through the woods and up over all kinds of obstructions to get to one of those wheels. So one of those wheels drives a number of these pumping heads. And the main problem they had from a maintenance standpoint is where the rods go through the woods. They have to stand on little tubes that we'll show you in a while, where the tubes rest, the wire rests on the tube and it saws back and forth like a hacksaw and ruins the tube. Or they would once in a while cut trees down and just lay it on top of the stump and let it grind its way through the stump, eventually moving it to a new place. But these rods, these pull rods, were all over the woods in this area.